It's a debate that returns to the stands and terraces regularly. Should Scotland's football leagues be reconstructed? Today, the Scottish Professional Football League said broad agreement had been reached on potential changes to the game's lower leagues. Agreement on changes to the top flight, however, was not forthcoming. So, where might the game go from here? We got the thoughts of Stephen McGowan, sports writer at the Herald, and Alastair Blair from the Scottish Football Supporters Association. So, Stephen, no change in the top league, but agreement that there may be changes in the three lower divisions.
Yeah, I think the phrase probably is rearranging of the deck chairs. I think there was always the expectation it would be a really hard sell to change or expand the Premiership, because we have this 11-1 vote, the need for that majority to enact any really major change, and it's very, very difficult to get that because you have clubs who have such different interests, so they can't really agree on anything. And usually the biggest interest is self-interest. But there does appear to be a broad agreement that the Championship should expand. It's 10 teams at the moment. It will go up, I think, to 12 or 14, pending discussions, I think May the 7th. There will then be discussion about merging what's left of League 1 and League 2 to either 16 or 18 teams, depending on what the Championship do. So that will be a reasonably significant change. I think there will be disappointment there's not more radical change in the Premiership, it's a status quo, but I think there's a feeling that probably at the moment economically is the best option for the clubs.
OK, we'll come back to the Premiership in a moment, but more generally, Alastair, what's the fans' view of these proposals?
I think from our perspective as an organisation, we're looking at this and thinking we're not surprised. We agree that change at the Premiership was probably a bridge too far. There does appear to be a real appetite for change at the lower levels. Of that, there's absolutely no doubt. And we'll wait and see what the proposals come out. We'll wait and see how these actually pan out. But the one thing that we've taken away from today, and that's just from our conversations, not just today, but over the last few weeks, is that there's an appetite to actually consult with fans, which we believe is a sea change. It's something which we think has been well overdue. And we think this is something we're looking forward to in the next couple of months and indeed over the rest of this year.
Why, Alastair, does it seem necessary for this reconstruction lower down?
I think there's been agitation for change. If you look back at the history of the Scottish League, there's been changes through its entire history. This is nothing new, not just 1975. We can go way back before that. So it's not a sedentary beast, the league. You're always looking for clubs who are wanting something different, who are wanting to actually find a way, to be honest, to get into the top tier. That's the ultimate goal for every club in the Scottish League, because that's where the money is. So there's obviously a follow the money element in that sense. I think we know from our own surveys as an organisation that there's a huge majority of fans want to see change. That's come across loud and clear. I think it's 84% the last survey we did. The difficulty is getting people to agree as to what that change should be. And that really, I think, has come out again today. How do you actually, what Stephen's just said, how do you actually nail that down to what the best solution will be? Not just for the clubs, but for the game and for the fans. And also it's going to be financially viable. That's fundamental.
OK, and Stephen, these proposals for the lower leagues, what's the thinking behind it? Why the need for this change?
I think that's a very good question. I mean, I think people have been fixating so much on the Premiership. Certainly speaking to Neil Doncaster on this subject, the main reason the SPFL were open to this idea at the top level was because of fixture congestion caused by expanded UEFA competitions. That's not going to be a factor in terms of changing this because the Premiership's staying the same. At the lower level, there was a bit of concern about community clubs. We've seen clubs like Cowdenbeath, East Stirling, Berwick, we've seen Brecon City going out the League 2 and dropping into a largely unfunded environment, the Highland League and the Lowland League. So I think there's a desire to try and help these clubs. How that will work out in reality has yet to be ascertained. We need to see the devil in the detail. I think what's key here, and it is an important point Alice has kind of touched on, is that actually there is a willingness to listen to fans, because make no mistake, this debate came about because of this clamour for change. There were members of the SPFL's competitions working group who thought, you know what, we haven't discussed this since April 2020, it's time to revisit it. They didn't maybe get the full change people wanted this time, but there is a willingness to talk.
Is there a difference, Alastair, between, and I'm thinking particularly in the Premiership here now, is there a difference between what the fans of the clubs want and what the clubs financially want?
I think that's particularly the top level. That's true. I mean, clubs obviously want to have everything, and it is like herding cats. You got 42 chairmen in the room, you'll get 45 different opinions. You get 42 different fans from each club, you'll get 45 different opinions. So it is really, it's like nailing jelly to the floor. But to come back to this key point from our perspective, it's the opportunity to actually be involved. And I think as an industry, football here is doing the right thing, because any industry that doesn't list its customers, and that's what the fans are, there's always the potential for things going wrong. But more importantly, by doing that and actually taking the temperature and listening to what people are saying, you're better informed to make a better decision further down the line. And we can look back, I'll give you an example. Recently, Iron Brew, famous Scottish institution, changed its recipe. Didn't go down well. They didn't do the market research. So this is really what's happening here, and we welcome this.
Stephen, just finally, how much do the clubs and the fans, or particularly the fans, have a say in this? And again, I'm thinking of the Premiership, and how much of this is governed by what the TV companies want?
I think that's a pretty major factor. And I don't think we can sugarcoat this. Sky Sports are putting 30 million a year in. A lot of people think that's not enough, and okay, that's fine. But it is the main commercial deal for the SPFL. And ultimately, they are not a charity. They are not really there to look at making Scottish football better or serving the greater good. They're looking for subscribers. They're looking for people to tune into the games. And they do that, and they get more numbers if they have more Rangers and Celtic games, rather than more games between Livingston and Ross County. So I think that's been one of the big factors here.
OK. Stephen, Alastair, thank you both for joining us in Scotland tonight.